This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I just seen some of the best competition at 154. These three championship bouts. You had Jermell Charlo. That was a very good fight. You know what I mean? Mr. Jackson, Julian's son. He has nothing to be ashamed about because he was whooping that ass. He was really taking it to Jermell. You know what I mean? And Jermell, man, he looked frustrated. You know what I mean? He couldn't land that left hook, and he couldn't land it. And he was losing on the scorecards. I was in agreement with the judges because they had it a shutout because he might have won 2 rounds out of those 8 when he got stopped. But it shows you one thing. I guess, it is true that people pass things down to you. And he did, unfortunately, Julian passed down to his son, Jack, the weak chin. You know what I'm saying? I mean, call it how I see it, because he got hit. He turned away. You never turn away in a boxing match. You in a fight and you gonna turn away, And Jermell just jumped on him. I mean, he should have done that. I mean, you gotta protect yourself at all times. You must do that. It's imperative that you do that. But he was doing really good. He was sticking and moving. You know what I mean? He looked like Lara out there in some spots. You know what I mean? And he was doing a really good job. And but he got caught, and that was a wrap. And you seen his legs stiffen up on him. You know what I mean? And dude, that was a good knockout performance. And I was surprised because I didn't see that coming. But again, I really didn't know a lot about him. I know he's got stopped before, against Andy Lee. Andy Lee knocked him out cold, and this was rather similar. You know what I'm saying? So, that was a good knockout, impressive win. Jermell, he joins his brother as a champion at the 154-pound weight limit. You know what I mean? So they're both champs. And speaking of Jermell Charlo versus Austin Trout. That was a very good fight. I seen one thing I noticed about that fight, man. Jermell is big. That's a big dude, man. I don't know what he weighed in. I didn't see the unofficial weigh in tonight how much he weighed, but that dude was big, dude. It looked like a welterweight versus a middleweight in there. You know what I mean? And Austin Trout was slick. I had Austin Trout winning, and in my prediction video, but it was a pretty competitive fight. It was just that, Jamal was just bigger, stronger, and he really pretty much pushed him around the ring. You know what I mean? And I can say this though, Jermell being bigger, stronger, hungrier, a new champion on the scene. You know what I mean? And he's stepping up in competition, fighting Trout. I did see him, land a lot of hard right hands to Austin Trout, and he was busting up Austin Trout, and Austin Trout didn't go down. He didn't fold, so, and Austin Trout's been down, a few times by a few guys, Lara and Canelo, to name a couple, but, he took those punches like a warrior, you know what I mean? And he got off some good punches, whenever Trout was first, he landed, and he had to land like a 3 or 4 punch combination, and he would at least land 2 out of that exchange. So, he did really well, and it was a back and forth fight. It was a gritty fight, you know what I mean? It was, it was a fight of balls, I seen Trout come on in, I seen him come in, and he came on in the second part of the fight, like starting at round 6, and he started really landing some good right hooks. He would throw a left to the body and a right hook, and follow up with it, and he did numbers to him. And one thing I can say about Jermell also, not only he's big, that's a big guy. He's not really aggressive. He kind of puts me in the mind of aggressive Lennox Lewis, you know what I mean? Because he stands tall, he throws a jab in the right hand. He takes what you give him. He doesn't really go in and initiate a lot. He was leading, and when he did lead in, he did catch Trout. But again, Trout stood up. But another thing I noticed about Trout today, he has some thin skin. I don't know if it's been because of the wars he's had. Definitely he's a veteran by now. It's only his third loss being a veteran. So he's a very good competitor. He fought a close fight with Canelo. He beat Miguel Cotto and upset him and stopped Cotto from fighting Canelo. You know what I mean? And went in there and fought Lara. You know what I mean? And so he's been in with the best. Now he fought a hungrier, stronger, bigger Charlo, which is Jamal. And, I'm comfortable with the decision because I had Jamal beating him. He landed the harder punches. Not really sure on the punch stats, but, Jamal really, he could have done a lot more. But, again, he was in there with a skilled fighter. You know what I mean? So I will give Trout that. He was a warrior. And I like how both losers, actually, they were pretty humble. You know what I mean? Trout he's always been a humble guy, and I was glad to see him upset Cotto. And I like Cotto, but Cotto was overlooking him, and looking past him, towards Canelo and other bigger things. You know what I mean? So, I'm glad for the win, and he's made his mark in the sport. You know what I mean? I give him a little better than guys like Josito Lopez, people that upset Victor Ortiz, because Victor Ortiz is no Miguel Cotto. You know what I mean? So, I got to take my hat off to Austin Trout and, Jack Johnson. You know what I mean? Because, he wasn't mad or pissed off. He just got caught, and he doesn't have a chin like his father, But both of those guys were humble, and I saved the best for last. Irislandy Lara, the American Dream, taking on Venus, the Nightmare Martirosyan. It was a good fight. I seen Lara come out a little bit more aggressive. I did not know about the injury he had in the first fight. But, he came out pot-shotting like he always does, slick, elusive, start landing punches, and he was landing the harder shots. And he just really, started outboxing him. Then, of course, the headbutt, they had a headbutt before, but thank God it wasn't like it was in the first fight, you know what I mean? With that really, really bad headbutt and the split eye and all that, you know what I mean? However, Lara did have a big peacock on his head, you know what I mean? And it looked like a little baby Hassan Rahman on his head, so... that was kind of concerning me. I was like, oh, okay, but they did keep it down, you know what I mean? So that shows that Lara had a good corner. Of course he does. He has Ronnie Shields in his corner. So, they kept it down for him. Now, Venus, he did start it coming on, just kind of like Canelo Alvarez did, start working the body, and then he kind of implemented an uppercut in there and then start getting through the guard of Lara. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And I seen Lara kind of get on the defensive a little bit when he started getting hit. And I noticed that about Lara in his fights. But Lara, he did land the better punches. It was some dirty stuff in there. I wouldn't have agreed with the point deduction. That was uncalled for. Victor Drakulich or whatever, he didn't have to do that. And I think he was getting pressured by Ronnie Shields, because after the fight they were showing Ronnie Shields like how many more times is he going to hit to the body. So I think he was kind of forcing Vic's hand, the referee's hand, in that manner. But I would have gave him another warning, like, hey, look, I'm telling you to keep him up, because other guys like Jack Reese, other referees would have, I don't think they would have easily gave him a point like that because it wasn't really, really low, But that's, again, it just showing you that Lara, he is a skillful fighter and very experienced in the ring when it came to came to doing things like that. You know what I mean? Kind of parrying it down and get, and it was, it actually was grazing low, and he really didn't initially throw it at that position. So, but Lara, he deserves the win. He just outboxed him like he always does. He should have been doing more. And Martirosyan, it's just Lara. Anybody that fights Lara is going to make you look bad. That's it. That's his job. He's going to frustrate you. He's going to make you fight the way he wants you to fight. He's going to move around. He's going to pot shot you. And, in a lot of the punches that he throws, he didn't really have a lot of steam on him. He just wanted to land them, And it's getting like some classic Mayweather. He's not as quick as Mayweather. And, Lara's really not all that fast. The thing is, he has good timing speed. You know what I mean? He's good at timing when you're coming in, when you're coming out, when you're off balance. And he's good to throwing that left. And, he kind of threw a looping left. I seen he threw it a couple times against Canelo, and he landed a lot of that, But some little dirty antics, kind of like the first fight. So you've seen there was definitely animosity in that fight between those two fighters. But the thing about this fight, it was a little bit more respect. You know what I mean? I think they've kind of matured a little. You know what I'm saying? Like, I seen that. Even after the fight was over, they gave each other dap. It wasn't like any bad blood. Vinus, gave his take on it. He thought he should have won, just like Trout thought he won the fight. You know what I mean? And it was really basically, a Showtime PBC card, which Lara is a star, along with the Charlo brothers is a star. So, I can dig the argument, you know what I mean? But, Lara outpointed him, he outlanded him a lot. But, a lot of people want Lara to be a lot busier. He is what he is. And I don't think he's going to stop. One thing he did do different from this particular, in this fight, and then I noticed in the first part of the fight, he really wasn't as mobile. He was kind of stationary, and he just put his dukes up, kind of almost like a TIE fighter, you know what I mean? And I noticed that, and he's trying to work the body, and he should have done more of that. He should have done more catch and shooting, countering off the body punches that Vinus was throwing, because he started really unloading body punches, to Lara's body. And Lara has these long arms, that 75-inch reach, but, some of them were getting through. And I know that got the attention of Lara, and I think Lara got on his bicycle a little bit and started, hey, let me be more evasive in there. And he started doing that and started back pop shotting, but before, they were like kind of, in a phone booth, and I kind of like that kind of fighting. But my guess is Lara doesn't do that a lot because of the phobia that he had in against Alfredo Angulo, when he was like toe-to-toe with Angulo, and Angulo, he works the body like second nature. So, when he fainted downstairs and went upstairs, and caught Lara. And actually, he dropped Lara twice. And that's the only person that actually took Lara to the canvas. In all the fights that Lara has been in. All 26 of them or whatever. So I know that that's in the back of Lara's mind. A person, especially one of the most elusive fighters in the sport, doesn't want to get caught like that. He has a Mayweather mentality, but he has more of a Money Mayweather's mentality versus a Pretty Boy Floyd mentality. You know what I'm saying? He's very elusive. He wants to get his shots off. He wants to do enough to win the round, but as far as like giving a crowd like what they want to see and stuff like that, it is kind of a lackluster in that regard. But you have to appreciate the sweet science of a person like Lara, because the dude's a gifted fighter. He's a gifted boxer. Let's say that. Not a gifted necessarily a fighter, because no one really made him fight. And then on Vinus's end, I was kind of disappointed in him because, before, in the press conference, he was saying that he would actually go in and work the body and start early. And he didn't do that. He tried to outbox Lara. You don't do that. Guys like Mayweather, Lara, boxers, you don't outbox boxers. You outfight boxers. You know what I mean? You fight the boxer. Because the boxer does what he does best, box. So you have to fight him. You have to do what you know to do. In Vinus, I guess he was doing something new or trying something new, but he should have done that earlier. He should have went from the first round and worked the body, and he didn't do that, and then he let, Lara, pick up a good lead, land that straight left, and some of those rocked his head back, made him say yes, and he wasn't trying to say yes, you know what I mean? So, it was a good fight all in all. But again, I'm glad that that Vinus put in a good effort. He started a flurry in later parts of the fight, but I think it was just too late. He should have done more. He's not the house name. Canelo didn't do as much on the body end as Vinus did, but he's not Canelo Alvarez. He's not in the position as him, so he has to do 2 times as more. But don't worry. I mean, the same for Lara. If he goes up in competition and he fights, he's going to have to do a lot more because he's not the house name. And a lot of fighters have to figure that out. You have to go in and beat the shit out of the head guy, the house name, take it to him, or get a knockout, but of course. You know what I'm saying? So that has to happen in that particular fight. So those 3 fights were good. 2 decisions, 1 knockout. Couldn't ask for too much more than that. You know what I mean? But earlier today in England, David Haye, Mr. Haymaker, he took out the undefeated boxer tonight. You know what I mean? And he showed that he's back. He shows that he's the future. I like Shannon Briggs. I like his personality. He has charisma in there. Lennox Lewis, he was a good fighter. He was a big puncher and a great boxer, a really good boxer. But the thing about Lennox Lewis, he just didn't have that charisma like David Haye. You know what I mean? I don't think that Lennox Lewis, he's a big guy. He didn't take any shit. But at the same token, David Haye, he's a personality in there. You know what I mean? So he's one of those guys that if he did retire, in the next couple years, he could always do something else. Was it like acting or something else? He can do other things besides box. And to beat an undefeated fighter like the way he done is showing definitely a statement. And he's back. And I look forward to seeing him fight Anthony Joshua. I think that would be a good fight. You know what I mean? Or Deontray Wilder, my fault. And Deontray Wilder sparred him before. I saw the tapes, and he was taking Deontray to school. I know it was earlier in his career or whatever, but Deontray Wilder, I don't see him actually have improved, on his defense or whatever. Maybe his stamina because he's used to knocking people out. But, somebody like David Haye could definitely give him problems. So it depends on how big David Haye wants to be versus how big Deontray Wilder becomes. And they get in that ring and duke it out, So I think whoever wins that fight will take the supremacy of the heavyweight division. Depends on what happens with Fury and Vladimir. You know what I mean? So, the heavyweight division, and you got Ortiz in there, and a lot of other fighters, So, but nonetheless, the heavyweight division's doing well. And Mr. Let's Go Champ, Shannon the Cannon Briggs comes in and stops a guy in the first round. And regardless of what people say, yeah, he's old, he's out of his prime, but he stayed in shape. He did do as promised. So he sets himself up with another payday. And again, he is a personality. So you got to give it to Shannon Briggs. You know what I mean? He marketed himself by doing the things that Ali done back in the day. I'm sorry, Cassius Clay did back in the day. Well, Ali did it too, before he was, reincarnated into Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay. So, I mean, he did that. He did those things, and look where it's got him. He could have been this quiet guy and waiting for this. No, he went out and took it. So if you want something in life, you got to take it. And Shannon, the Cannon Briggs, has took it. So let's go, champ. Let's go, champ. I like Shannon Briggs, man. I mean, I don't think he'll win against David Haye, but he's going to get a payday, and he's got himself in position with his personality and his motivation. So, big ups to him. More power to Shannon the Cannon. What else was I going to talk about concerning those guys? David Haye. After his win, impressive win today. He had a rebuttal for Shannon the Cannon. Instead of let's go champ, he was like let's go chump. But I like that. I do like that. I like how David Haye did promise and keep his wish, keep his promises on fighting Shannon the Cannon, because he didn't have to do that. He could always fought someone else. And for any, and made a reason why. Like other fighters, I'm not going to say any names. So, the fight's on. Shannon the Cannon, he has motivated himself, and he's got himself in this position to fight David Haye. He called out David Haye. David Haye, like a man, responded, and now they're going to fight in September. So there you go. That's how real fights are made. That's how real guys with real balls make fights, take fights, and fight in the ring. That's how it's done. You know, but this is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I'm just wrapping it up. And you've been Counterpunch with this prediction video and this post-fight conference. Peace.